We make thousands of choices every single day. But have you ever stopped to think about how many of them are truly our own? Today, we're going to dive into the hidden forces that shape who we are, and more importantly, the incredible power we have to take back the pen and write our own story. So let's start with a big question. How much of you is actually you? I mean, your beliefs, your habits, the way you react to things, was that all your choice? It's a pretty wild thought that maybe, just maybe, a huge chunk of our identity was assembled for us, not by us. And that's exactly where we need to begin. We have to understand this inherited blueprint that is quietly and constantly shaping the world we see every single day. Think about it. Every little thing we do, every action we take today, it carries an echo of the past. All those subconscious patterns, the things we do without even thinking, they're almost always rooted in our earliest years, shaped by people and events we might not even consciously remember. It's funny, isn't it? Our values, our beliefs, even the music we like, it all feels so deeply personal, so us. But so often, these things were actually put together for us by our family, our culture, our surroundings. It wasn't really a deliberate choice. It was more like we just absorbed a world we were dropped into. So what happens? We end up living inside these invisible boundaries. I'm not talking about physical walls, but limits built from the fears, the expectations, and the ideas that others gave us, usually when we were way too young to even question them. But here's the good news. That inherited blueprint, that's not the end of the story, not even close. This is where we get to the turning point, what we could call the moment of awakening, when we finally realize we have a say in all of this. And here is a core truth you've gotta grasp. If you want to change what you do, your actions, you can't just focus on the actions themselves. It doesn't work. You have to go upstream. You have to look at the source, the beliefs, and the thoughts that create those actions in the first place. This brings us to a really powerful idea, conscious authorship. It's that aha moment, the realization that your identity isn't some fixed thing you were handed at birth. No, it's an ongoing project, a construction site, and you are the architect. You get to direct it. And when you see it that way, suddenly the word responsibility stops feeling like this heavy burden, right? It becomes the opposite. It becomes your greatest source of genuine power. The more you own your ability to choose your direction, the stronger that power gets. Okay, so understanding all this is great, but how do we actually do it? How do we go from theory to action? Well, let's open up the toolkit and look at the practical ways to start architecting the reality you really want. You can really break this process down into 3 key steps. First, it's about awareness. You have to identify those unhelpful patterns and where they came from. Then you move to intervention, where you actively work to reshape the thoughts that fuel them. And finally, curation, building an environment around you that actually supports the new you. Now that second step, reshaping your thinking, this is way more than just positive thinking. It's a real practical strategy. When you consistently redirect your focus to the outcomes you want, you actually start to rewire the neural pathways in your brain that keep those old negative patterns locked in place. And that third step, cultivating your environment, that is all about setting essential boundaries. This means you have to become a guardian, almost like a bouncer, for your own mental space. You learn to recognize what triggers negativity. You step away from people or situations that drain you, and you actively seek out things that lift you up. But let's be real for a second. This path is never a perfectly straight line. We all hit walls. We all face setbacks. So what do you do when you run into those inevitable obstacles that just stand in your way? You know that instinct, right? When you're under pressure, your first reaction is just to push harder, to force a solution. We've all done it. But that very reaction, that panic move, usually just makes the whole problem worse. The real answer isn't more force. It's finesse. It's about taking a breath, stepping back, and approaching the problem with a calm curiosity. When you patiently look at it from different angles, you create the space for a real creative solution to bubble up to the surface. And this really shows you the massive difference between doing nothing and doing something. A problem you ignore never just stays the same size. It compounds, it grows, it gets messier. But the very moment you decide to engage with it, even if you don't have the perfect answer, you open up a path to solving it. All right, so this brings us to the final and maybe most crucial piece of the puzzle. It's one thing to design a new way of being, but how on earth do you maintain it for the long haul? Because here's the reality. A consciously chosen identity is always under pressure. Social expectations, what other people think, even your own deep-seated desire to just fit in, all these forces are constantly at work, trying to pull you off course and reshape you into something else. So, in the face of all that constant pressure, holding on to the self you've chosen really comes down to one single core task. And this is it. This is the fundamental exercise of freedom. It's simply to stay aware of that slow, subtle drift that's always trying to pull you away from your center. The real work isn't in arriving at some final destination. It's in the daily, consistent, active steering back toward the identity you have chosen for yourself. So, at the end of the day, the power is in your hands, the tools are available, and the construction of you is always ongoing. The only question that truly matters now is the one you have to answer for yourself. Who will you choose to become?